All right. Shrink here. Okay, great. We'll just we'll get started. So thanks everyone for coming to this session this morning. My name is Emily Ruppel. I'm a final year PhD student at Carnegie Mellon University. And I'm here today speaking on behalf of my co-chair, Sihang Liu, and a big committee of folks from CASA about the project we've been working on to put together long-term mentoring for the computer architecture community. So the first question we need to answer is, why do we care about mentoring? Well, we know that there's research out there that shows that academic mentoring improves retention in research. So more specifically, if folks have mentors during their graduate years, they're more likely to stay in research-related occupations after they graduate, i.e. they stay in the community stays healthy. This is good. However, further research in this shows that the benefits don't manifest in just short-term mentoring. Instead, it takes time for the mentees to fully benefit from the mentoring relationship. Additionally, there's already been work done within the computer architecture community to see if there's interest in long-term mentoring. Throughout the last year, the participants in the Meet a Senior Student and Meet a Senior Architect programs were asked if they were interested in long-term mentoring, and over 80% said they were. So at this point, we know that there's a benefit to long-term mentoring, and we also know that there's folks in this community interested. So when we take a step back and look at some of the mentoring opportunities available, we need to ask the question if this need is already being met. So the specific attributes we're interested in here is there a program that targets all students, that's long-term, and is intended for computer architects? And I've shown a couple of mentoring programs in orange that you may have seen at a couple of computer architecture conferences, and then another program that we have drawn a lot of inspiration from, SIGPlan-M, shown in blue, and I'll explain that one in a sec. So let's start walking across some of these attributes. If we look at these, we've got a couple of mentoring workshops, namely CWWMCA and YARC or MUARC, that are intended for a smaller subset of the community, which is awesome. But the question is, what programs are there that target everybody? And in that, there's really just Meet a Senior Student / Meet a Senior Architect, and then there's SIGPlan-M. So SIGPlan-M is a program that's for out of the programming languages community and performs long-term mentoring. So you'll be hearing more about that later, but I wanted to explain what that was. So the next attribute we're interested in here is, are these programs long-term? And again, we look across the board, and the only one of these that's long-term is SIGPlan-M. But yet we ask ourselves, if we join in on SIGPlan-M, we are crashing their party. It is intended for the programming languages community, not the computer architecture community. So that brought us to the conclusion that we need to start our own. So today we're proposing the Computer Architecture Long-Term Mentoring Program, or CALM. So CALM is the acronym I'll be using throughout the rest of this talk. So with that, here's how the rest of this talk is going to go. I told you a little bit about why long-term mentoring is important. From there, I'll describe how CALM works. Then we'll talk about some of the goals of the program, and I'll give you a little bit of details on the implementation to convince you that we can actually do this. So let's talk about the overview here. The main idea is that CALM is going to match mentors and mentees for 1 year at a time. This will proceed in a couple of phases. So the first one is the recruitment phase, where we try to bring in mentors and mentees. That's this. So thank you for participating in the recruitment phase. The idea there is that if folks do want to participate, they'll fill out a Google form or two so that we've got enough information to match people. I'm showing two different matching sets here because we're hoping to actually match people kind of based on two different sets of categories, if you will. We'll have one set of folks who we match based on technical interests primarily. This is if they indicate that's what they prefer. And then we'll have people who we match more based on their personal background, those qualities. And these will be two different tracks of mentorship. And I'll give you more details on that later. The idea being that folks can either choose to match based more on their technical interests or more on their personal attributes, depending on what kind of mentoring they're really interested in. So once people are matched up, the mentors and mentees will then meet on a monthly basis to further that mentoring relationship. And they'll do this over the course of a year. But after a year, they'll have an option to rematch annually. This is a feature we are shamelessly borrowing from SIGPlan-M. The idea here being that mentees can then benefit from multiple mentors over their participation in the program, and it gives mentors the ability to either scale up or scale down the number of mentees they have and to meet with different people. So that's the idea of CALM. To give you a little bit more of the timeline that we're looking at, right now in October 2021, we're in the process of recruiting mentors and mentees with the hope that by January, we're going to be able to start a small pilot program with the goal of requesting feedback from these folks involved in the pilot program pretty frequently so that we can work out any bugs before we try to scale out around, say, ISCA timeframe next year. So that's the timeline we're looking at. Now, I've given you an overview of what CALM is and the rough timeline we're looking at to do that. So let's talk about some of the specific goals for this program. So one of the things we want from this program is to help our mentors and mentees, these matches, if not have tangible outcomes, have definite outcomes. So I mentioned before that we'll be matching folks based on two different sets of criteria. We're calling those tracks. We're looking at having a research track and what we're calling a development track, a personal and professional development track, with the idea being that this will help matches focus on accomplishing something, just something definite, giving folks a goal. So a possible goal for the mentorship on the research track might look something like carrying out a small-scale literature review. Say if mentors and mentees match on a certain technical topic, the mentee can show up with a reviewed paper and discuss that with a mentor every time they meet. It also could look something like chatting with an industry mentor about the industry perspective on a certain technical topic, or even something like writing a wacky paper. We just want folks to kind of pick an idea and stick with it to really have a goal for their mentorship. Similarly, on the development side, these may be a little harder to put a finger on, but we're asking folks to focus on something they'd like to work on. So if, there's some easy examples here. If I'm in the middle of a job search and I'm working with a long-term mentor, then my goal is to get feedback on my job search, my job materials, all that. But it could be something else, say practicing communication skills, getting better at giving talks, stuff on that line. Or if it's something like you want to improve, the mentee wants to improve their relationship with their advisor, then it becomes this process of, chatting with the mentor about how things are going over the course of the year, maybe trying new strategies, seeing how that goes. The rough idea is just we want folks to get something out of it. So we're asking them to define a goal when the mentor-mentee relationship first begins. However, if we zoom out 1,000 feet, I think the broader goal of CALM is that we really want it to work for everyone. So we want a program that's inclusive. And when we say inclusive, we mean across demographics, backgrounds, all of those categories, but also across universities, technical areas, industry and academia. We want something that really involves all members of the computer architecture community and makes them feel welcome. Additionally, we want something that's sustainable. We don't want to burn out our mentors. We want something that mentees are interested in being a part of. Finally, we want this to be useful. We want folks to get something out of it so that they're happy to put stuff back in. And how are we going to figure out if this is working for everyone? Data, surveys. So I warn you now, if you are interested in participating in this program, please be prepared for surveys. We're going to try to make this program data-driven. So we'll be asking for feedback just to make sure we're not lacking in any big areas. We don't want to have blind spots. So I've given you a little bit of information about the goals that we're looking at for CALM. So now let me talk about some of the implementation and pull back the curtain so you can see how this is going to work. So the first thing to note, and I think is that mentor-mentee matching is a very manual process. It starts out with a Google form, and then that gets handed off to, at this point, it'll be a small team of humans. They may be superheroes, but they are still humans who are going to work to find good matches. So I say this just to keep in mind that it's going to take some time, particularly as we're learning to do this. So I want to specifically shout out to the folks who have already filled out these forms. Thank you so much. But do know that it's going to take us some time to match you, particularly going through this initial small pilot program. The next thing to note is that CALM is going to have both a logistics and an advisory committee. The idea with the logistics community is that it's going to be primarily students who are going to handle the day-to-day work of, running CALM. It'll be handling the communication, organizing events like these and the website. And this is, I will disclose a shameless plug if you are interested in volunteering. Our goal here is for this to just be a 1 to 2 hour per week obligation, like baseline, or average, excuse me. So if you're interested in doing that and taking on this role that's going to involve communicating to big swaths of the computer architecture community, please let us know. We're really looking for folks to help. Now, so that's the logistics community. That was my plug to students. The advisory committee is, our hope is to have it be a group of senior community members who can basically help us make those, tough matching decisions. These are the folks we're going to go to when we say, okay, we've got this mentee and these possible mentors. Who should we match? We're looking for senior people who know people, is basically what I'm saying. So, but at the same time, our goal is to drill down this to be kind of a minimal obligation. We're just looking to use your knowledge, not your time. So the obligation we're trying to keep to just answering emails a couple times a month. So if you are interested in being part of the advisory committee, or you know someone who'd be a good fit for that, please let us know. We're taking nominations for that now. So with that, thank you so much for your attention. I've dropped the mentor sign up and mentee sign up forms on this slide, but all of this information can be found at our website, comparcmentoring.org. So without further ado, I will hand it off to Siham.
Thanks so much for the introductory talk, Emily. So next, we're going to start with a panel session. My name is Siham Liu. I'm a PhD student at the University of Virginia. I'm very happy to be the moderator for this panel session. In today's panel, we are bringing together 4 researchers. They have organized and supported different types of programs that target junior researchers. So now I'll introduce each panelist. Talia Ringer is an assistant professor at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, where she builds technologies that make it easier to develop and maintain verified systems. She's the founder and the chair of the SIGPlan long-term mentorship program, SIGPlan-M, which serves hundreds of mentees across dozens of countries. She has 10 years of mentoring experience and continues to mentor through SIGPlan-M. Adrian Sampson is an assistant professor in the computer science department at Cornell. He works on programming languages and computer architecture. Adrian co-chaired the Program Language Mentoring Workshop PLMW at PLDI 2020 and was a founding member of the operation teams for SIGPlan-M. He moderated the Demystifying Grad School panel at the Young Architect Workshop, YArch, this year, and has served on YArch's program committee 3 times. Gururaj Sewajwar is a graduating PhD student at Georgia Tech, advised by Professor Moin Qureshi. His research is in the intersection of computer architecture and security. Recently, Gururaj helped co-organize Meet a Senior Architect MASA and Meet a Senior Student MAS program with Professor Joe Emmer and CASA at several computer architecture conferences. He is also part of the organizing committee for CALM, which is initiating a long-term mentorship program in computer architecture. Mongjia Yang is an assistant professor at MIT's Electrical Engineering and Computer Science Department and a member of the Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Laboratory. Her research interest lies in the area of computer architecture and security with a focus on side-channel attacks and defenses. She co-organized a YArch workshop in 2021 and was a member in the Meet a Senior Architect program. Okay, thanks so much to come. And next, I'm gonna start with questions. So to get started, I would like to ask a very general question. Could you briefly share your past mentoring experience, both as mentor and a mentee? So I see Talia on the first place in my screen. So can you just get started?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so my mentoring experience as a mentor and mentee. So I think a lot of my experience with like long-term mentoring, both as a mentor and a mentee, started in industry. So like I spent a few years at Amazon before before grad school. And they had a lot of kind of more formal programs set up that kind of stuck with me for a while and were part of the inspiration for SIGPlan-M. So like they would match you with like a woman software engineer from another team. So I had mentors like that, and I also served as a mentor for people later on. And that just inspired me a lot. I think it really helped me navigate challenges that I faced as an engineer. So I kept doing it in kind of less formally and through other programs in grad school. I was also a mentor for like the queer mentoring program at UW, which was a place to have a really strong impact. And for some, grad student or undergrad women at UW when I was a grad student. And then, yeah, after starting SIGPlan-M, I've been serving actually both as a mentor and as a mentee through my own program, which is kind of fun. So yeah, it's been about 10 years. It's been really wonderful.
Okay, thanks so much for sharing experience. Oh, by the way, forgot to mention that this session is being recorded, and we like to share the video with people from different time zones and different areas in the world. So I see, Adrian, you are the next on my screen. Could you just also share your past mentorship experience, both as mentor and mentee?
Sure. I feel like I don't have that much interesting to say about being a mentee, just because I feel like I had pretty traditional mentoring relationships, like from like undergrad through grad school and through now. Like I have a lot of people who are like, assigned to be my mentor, and they have done a really, really great job, and I valued that a whole bunch. But like a lot of these like other programs for finding other mentors outside of your area, I guess I'm just old enough that none of those really existed, or at least I didn't know that they existed. But nonetheless, like of course, mentorship was like a huge component. It's like the only reason that I knew how to do any manner of research or navigate any kind of like professional like structures. So like, but even though they were through the sort of formal traditional means, of course, that was a huge component. I just like don't have any like interesting stories, I guess, to tell about that. Like as a mentor, I guess, like, so I am a long-term mentor for SIGPlan-M, which has been super fun. I joined this cycle and have like a couple of mentees that I talk with like roughly every month or maybe a little bit longer. And I think it's been really interesting. They're both in like such incredibly different stages of their careers. That is like some like the difference in the questions you have when you're just getting started in like trying to figure out what to do for research versus like I'm on this track and I need sort of like career advice about how to like how to balance the many constraints. Like those things are so incredibly different from each other, and so it's interesting to sort of like put yourself back into those stages of life, and I have really enjoyed that too.
Okay, thanks so much for sharing your experience. I see Monja next on my screen. So could you also share your best mentorship experience?
Sure. So I think I also have quite a traditional mentor-mentee experience as Adrian. So when I was a PhD student, the only long-term mentor relationship I have is with my advisor, obviously. I do participated in the Meet a Senior Architect program multiple times. And what I learned from this, I also attended the other mentoring workshop, like we have the minority and women and the minority workshop in computer architecture. We had it every year. I always attended it. I think I attended like during my PhD, I attended 4 times or so that workshop. And because I attended that workshop every year, so I kind of know almost a lot of great female faculty and researchers in the community. We didn't really have very in-depth conversation or long-term mentoring relationship. However, I really view them as my role model. And every year, even though it sounds like very rare, but every year I saw them, I can feel that I'm involved. So I would say that even though we do not really have this direct mentoring relationship, I did benefit from such a community feeling of things. Now, as a faculty, you may not believe it, but I'm still a mentee. I do have other mentors who kind of give me very valuable feedback or advice on anything I'm learning, trying to learn as a faculty. And I would say for such a mentor-mentee relationship, we also didn't set up it in a very formal format. They are not like my mentor on paper or something more like that. So it's more like if I have anything I do not know how to address, how to solve, I can reach out to them, and I feel very comfortable to reach out to them because I know that I'm not judged by them. I think that is kind of something important in the community, because academic is about being judged by others, being evaluated by others. But I feel like how to set up this feeling that you are not being judged and you are free and open to ask these questions. And it's common to have these questions. It's it's normal to have these questions really helped me a lot. So that is kind of my mentee experience as a mentee. With regard to my mentoring experience, I just started my faculty job like around less than 2 years ago, actually only 1.5 years ago. So not a lot, but what I try to do, of course, I cannot say much about how my mentee like it or not, but what I generally try to do is that I really told them I always say that for the PhD experience for most students, it's unique for each people, but also there's so many things in common, like failures are the common things, and everyone needs to go through this failure process. So I always told them I had very tough time during my PhD, and it turns out that many mentees told me that they were just surprised because they thought that because I'm at MIT, so I'm supposed at the top of this world somehow, I should be able to do anything I like to do. But no, I had many difficulties. I also thought about quit the program when I was a PhD student. So I would say that after I sharing my experience with them, they seem to be a little bit calmer, even though I know that it cannot solve the problem forever. They will still have many different problems in their life. And I do see that a long-term program will benefit that a lot.
Thanks so much for sharing experience. So Gururaj, could you also take the question?
Thanks, Ian. Thanks again for organizing this panel. So my experience as a mentee, at least in the computer architecture community, has been mostly my advisor and very traditional, some faculty at Georgia Tech, and through these other programs that are available right now in our community, like Meet a Senior Architect. My experience with these programs, at least in the computer architecture community, has been that it's always been a very positive experience, right? I've always found faculty welcoming and happy to chat and happy to take time out to help out in whatever way I have needed help at any point. So I always try to sign up for as many mentoring opportunities I can get, because it really helps to get a diversity of inputs. Different faculty or different mentors can be at different positions in their career and also have different life experiences. So it really helps to get different answers sometimes to the same problems, and it helps you understand how to solve a particular problem you might be facing. As a mentor, I haven't had a lot of experience, obviously, because I'm still a student, but all of the experiences that I've had have been through peer mentorship programs, both in my undergrad at IIT Bombay in India. We had a really strong peer mentorship program. So I actually got the benefit of mentoring freshmen there. And I try to do a little bit of that in an informal mode also at Georgia Tech. But most of my mentoring experience has really been organizing mentoring programs. So, yeah.
Okay, great. So let's move on to the more specific questions. So as I know, Monja and Guru, you have organized workshops that targeting junior researchers in our community. So I was wondering whether you have any experience to share, and especially have you met any common concerns from the students? So who'd like to take the question?
I can go first. So one of the reasons why I actually got into organizing a mentorship program, and I've been organizing mentorship programs since my undergrad, was that, I mean, all of us would agree that mentors are playing such a disproportionate role have played a disproportionate role in our own success, right? And having good mentorship is actually very important for a few reasons, right? One is, of course, you get knowledge, you get access to their knowledge. Second, you actually get access to connections. Mentors can just put you in contact with someone who can help you with whatever problem you're facing. And third, of course, with time, with the interactions that you have sustained over a sustained period, you actually grow based on the mentor's feedback, right? So clearly mentors are very important, right? But the problem is that often not everyone has access to mentorship equally, right? Like I faced this myself in undergrad that in my university, there just weren't enough architecture faculty who might be good mentors for me to navigate the architecture space, right? And fortunately, I've been blessed with a lot of architecture faculty at my university, but at my graduate school, but that's really not the case for a lot of students at a lot of universities. So it's really important to just enable access to mentorship for all students in an equitable manner, right? So I think that's the main reason why mentorship programs, like structured programs, are important in every community at every level and so on. And I'm really fortunate that we have a lot of support in our community for organizing such programs. Mentors are willing to volunteer that time, as I said. And yeah, I'm really fortunate also that people like Sihang and Emily are taking the lead in also doing something like CALM for our community. My only experience that I would like to point out with MAS and MASA has been that organizing MAS and MASA has been that mentors again are very positive. And it's taken a little bit of time for it to become part of the fabric of the community, where each conference actually expects it to be organized. Like I think a few iterations before, we really would try to push the general chairs to actually ask for like get it organized, like because we needed their help in getting signups and so on. But I think the roles have sort of gotten reversed now, where general chairs are actually or conference organizers are saying that, hey, are you guys thinking about organizing it this time? So that change has really happened, and I'm really glad about that. Yeah, I'm really hopeful that events, programs like these would continue, and people would keep organizing them, and people would participate in them.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that these programs are getting more support these days. So Mongja, you have also co-organized some programs like Y-Arch workshop. Could you share some experience also?
Yeah, sure. I co-organized the Y-Arch with Alex from Georgia Tech University and John Aswell from AMD. It was a very nice experience this year. We did it with US Plus 2021. And we are planning to do it again with US Plus 2022, even though it's still under plan, but very likely we will have it again. And if it happens, the organizing committee will be me, John from last year, and also Ashita from CMU University. And I'm really excited that very likely, I think we will get the confirmation from the organizing committee of US Plus, even though it's not yet, we didn't have answer right now. So Y-Arch is really a program, a workshop for early stage graduate students and also research active undergraduate students. The purpose is really that if you are doing some very early stage work or the first work in your PhD, it's very difficult for you to have a very polished or like surprising idea work. So most likely the work is in a still not mature stage. And you know that for most days computer architecture conferences, the acceptance rate is only around 20%. It's actually very brutal. And it's very common to see some very harsh reviewers. And just like it's not really good and nice for first year or second year PhD students to suffer from this, to be honest. So the really purpose for Y-Arch is really that we want to provide a very welcoming and friendly platform. So we call for papers. So we try to invite junior PhD students to submit their very immature work. It's only 2 pages, and we have a program committee. We try to ask these program committees to give very high-level constructive feedback to the students, and it will not be judged in a very harsh way, because we are really trying to help you to improve the paper so that you can take the idea, further improve it, and maybe in the future you can have a top conference paper. So that is the basic idea of Y-Arch, and we will have for the paper which are accepted, we will have these poster sessions. And I participated the post session from beginning to end the last year. My experience is that if the faculty, we also invite other faculty to attend the post session. When faculty attend the post session, they can also It also gives students a chance to describe their work, to practice their communication skills in a more relaxed and not intense setup. And this faculty understand you are all junior students, and they will not, in a very in a very judging way, and they will give you like very friendly, constructive feedback. And sometimes I even attend the posters, which it's not in my area, so I actually cannot give very constructive feedback. Even in that case, I would like to hear about this research, so the students also kind of get the practice of describing their work to people who are not in their area. So that is the biggest part of my arch. Well, in addition to that, we also have panels to describe all the failures you could suffer during our PhD, so that you know that it's very normal to have all these difficulties. And we also have this Meet a Senior Architect program, which is a little bit overlapped with Meet a Senior Architect in CASA, but I think it's also beneficial for the junior students to get multiple mentors, even more mentors, so they can see all the different aspects of this field.
Okay, great. Thanks so much for sharing experience. So let's move on to the programs we are largely inspired from, that SIGPlan M. So Talia and Adrian, as you are the co-founders of this program, so I was wondering if you can also share some experience, probably not in our community, but from also other communities' perspective in terms of long-term mentoring.
Let me clarify that Talia was the founder. I just helped out a little bit at the beginning. It is Talia's baby. Go for it, Talia.
Yeah, I mean, you're on the committee. I mean, there's a good committee of helpful people. But yeah, I guess so. Experiences. Yeah, I mean, I guess SIGPlan M was born out of like most things I do, kind of impulse. Like I had been imagining for a long time, some kind of long-term mentoring thing, but at some point, before a conference, someone came up to me and was like, you can do, whatever you want for this conference to kind of make things a little bit better. And I was like, why don't I just try to launch a long-term mentoring program? So yeah, it started off with just me, which was way too much work. But then we built a whole committee, and it's been really wonderful since. And I think, yes, I guess there are different kinds of experiences that I think are worth knowing about. I think the things like on the side of like mentee needs and that we've served so far, I think some of those have surprised me. It's hard to see everyone else's experiences when you're kind of wrapped up in your own experiences. And when we were matching mentors and mentees, I've seen some patterns emerge that I just wouldn't have thought of. Like a really common one that comes up is that there are a number of, for example, like transgender mentees who really want to be matched with a transgender mentor. And having an organized program is extremely helpful for this kind of thing, because if you're not out, then asking some random person, not knowing if they're trans friendly or anything is terrifying. So yeah, I think like being able to make some of those matches and have it just be a part of a process that so many people are involved in. So handling some of those, like the more sensitive matches has been really helpful. Yeah, I think also like having it be external to your institution is really important, because some people deal with problems at their own institution where they really do need someone outside to be like, hey, that's not healthy. Like, what you're going through is not actually something you should be going through. Yeah, and yeah, I guess another thing I didn't know, I started this when I was a senior grad student. And of course, I was mostly thinking about like students and, maybe engineers who wanted to go to grad school, get some help with that process. I hadn't thought about the needs of faculty at all. It was really Alexandra Silva, who's on the committee as well, who was like, hey, this is also a really good opportunity to reach, some junior faculty who often lack this kind of mentorship. So yeah, we ended up just making it like any aspiring or current programming languages researcher. And I think that's been really good, although it is sometimes harder to match faculty because the needs are more specific. The population to draw from is often smaller. Yeah, those are some experiences. I'm happy to talk more if there are specific like things you'd like to know about.
Yeah, Adrian, do you have any add-ons?
Sure. I guess I'll add one thing on. Is it like I guess I've been like although Talia has done most of this, I was, when we were doing the matching, I was pretty impressed at how forthcoming mentors were. That is, like, it wasn't like that hard to recruit enough mentors. I kind of like was worried that was going to be a bigger problem than it was, to be perfectly honest. But it's like, I don't know, like it sort of sounds like a big commitment. Like you're signing up to meet someone you've never met before and then like talk to them for an entire year. Like it kind of sounds like a difficult sell, but it turns out that like a lot of people want to do it. It's not like literally everyone in the community, but sometimes it feels like a very large chunk of the community has signed up to do it, and that is pretty cool. I guess the other thing is a little bit more on the actual mentoring interactions that I have had. I guess I've been surprised at how often a single question comes up, which is like, how am I supposed to know what I'm interested in? As like, I've just talked to so many people who are like, I kind of like a bunch of things, but like it seems like everyone around me has like this like one vision of what they like in research. But like I am of course different from everyone else in the sense that I don't really know what I like. And so like, how do people figure out what they want to do like in grad school or something? I thought it was really interesting to make that connection. That seems like everyone believes that everyone else knows specifically what they're doing, but no one actually does,
Thanks so much for sharing. So I guess this a follow-up question, probably you already mentioned that. So I was curious, what aspects of CALM or in general the mentorship in program language community can be brought into the mentoring program architecture community? Any thoughts?
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, I think the general like, okay, what aspects? Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you've already learned from a lot of the structure. So that seems cool. I think one of the things that I have put into this that I really like, that I haven't heard from a lot of other programs, and it's honestly a lot of work. So like, I feel like you might want someone dedicated to do this, but yeah, one thing that I've done is actually every 2 months or so, I will check in with all of the mentors and mentees. So you mentioned doing like, data-driven work, which I think is fantastic. This is actually one place where SIGPlanM has really not done well yet. Like we're, working on our first like real survey to measure, anything quantitative, but qualitatively, like every couple of months, I will right now email all of the mentors and mentees and just like ask a couple of questions about, how are things going? When is the last time that you met with your mentor or mentee? Is there anything that you need that you feel like, you're not getting out of this or you're not able to provide? Do you have any other questions? And yeah, if people don't respond, it's okay. Like, but I think the cool thing is often there are problems that come up that are totally resolvable. And a lot of this comes out to like kind of coaching mentors pretty often. Like mentors will not, they might be like, oh, I don't know anything about this one thing that this mentee has asked me. And I'm like, oh, but you have a lot of connections. Do you know anyone who does know that, who you can connect them with? And they're like, oh yeah, I didn't think about doing that. Yeah, and like, it's just like being able to have those conversations helps a lot. Being able to like help people resolve communication problems. Like some mentors, if a mentee doesn't respond the first time, might interpret this as, the mentee doesn't want to meet with me. I want to, not do this relationship. Whereas like some mentees might just, not pay that much attention to their email, need another medium. So being able to resolve those communication issues has also been a big part of it. And it gives people an opportunity if something is really wrong to kind of just say it without having to reach out on their own. So even though the default relationship is a year, and you can renew after a year, if it's mutual or match with someone else, there is an opportunity along the way if you're not happy to say I'm not happy, and we can try to help you find someone else. Yeah, I guess one really sorry.
No, go for it.
Another just a really small thing that has helped is we're hooked into the registration forms for every conference, and it just makes the recruiting effort much easier. There's like a checkbox at every conference now that's like, I'm interested in long-term mentoring as a mentor, as a mentee. And then I just get those email addresses and I send them a standard like recruitment email. And that has been, I think, our biggest source recently of mentors and mentees.
Adrian, do you have any other thoughts on
I was
this?
actually going to ask Talia, do you know where like the custom matching software debacle stands for
Yeah, this is one place where we've struggled, and it'd be really cool if if we have two programs going, then like hopefully this will provide a little more inertia for this. We've been doing everything very manually for a long time, like over a year now, and like yeah, we got a programmer from SIGPlan to dedicate time to this, but everything with the ACM SIGs at all, as I'm sure people in CASA know, like it's slow, very slow. So yeah, I think that the current status is like I have a meeting finally at the end of November because that's our first mutual availability. And the goal is to have some infrastructure out by our January conference. Judging by the way these things often go, my guess is it will be later. But yeah, it's been slow.
Thanks so much for the suggestions. Yeah, I totally agree that making it automated would definitely help the procedure. So this is to the audience. So as we are going through the panel session, so if you guys have any questions or any particular things you want as the panelists to share, feel free to leave a message in the chat. See, there's one question. So I was wondering if you have some suggestions on what mentees organizers can work on in the longer term to make the mentorship program fruitful for both mentor and mentees. How do you view group mentoring? So I think what we talked so far is one-to-one, one-on-one mentoring. What about group mentoring? So I guess this is a general question to every panelist here.
I guess my gut reaction to group mentoring is it seems interesting if it can be an option. I guess that is like I'm sure that some people like don't want that, but like I guess I can imagine being a student who would actually be really into that because maybe I don't actually have that many questions myself. I just am sort of like I don't know what questions to ask, and doing group mentoring might be a good way to sort of like to like piggyback on other people's questions. If people want to opt into it.
Yeah, I think it just becomes a harder, if you're looking at long-term, it becomes a harder constraint problem. Sorry, were you done? I don't know if I was interrupting you.
All done, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, like it becomes a harder constraint problem, especially if there are things where, the mentee has really specific questions that they might not be comfortable asking in front of other people. But as like I've seen this happen as like a short-term thing at a lot of conferences, and it can go really well in those situations. And yeah, I think there are probably situations where long-term it could also be helpful. I just haven't thought of it. I also think, yeah, like one thing for making things more like fruitful for everyone. One thing we've been thinking about but haven't tried yet, in part just because of how conferences have been through COVID. Like I think once conferences are have a really significant like in-person component to them. We'd really like to have some kind of event for just all mentors and mentees, like at the conferences, like some kind of lunch or something, just to foster like a sense of community, you know, get to know everyone, talk about how things are going. And yeah, I mean, I guess there you could also have some kind of group mentoring component to it. So I hope we get a chance to do that at some point.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly add on and say that I think the having like events specifically for mentors or mentees is really a good idea, because it actually fosters this feeling that, yes, I'm part of something bigger, right? Like it's not just the time I personally spend as a mentor, but I can see that everyone else is doing it and people are actually benefiting, right? Not just one person, but as a community. So I think that could really, really help. And we should also think about doing something as part of CALM or MASA or something like that.
Yeah, I also want to comment a little bit on that. Actually, we were already doing some form of that things in some of the workshops. For example, in YArt last year, we did have this roundtable mentoring event happened during Us Plus, and because it's virtual, we can only do it over gathered time. And I also know that last year, you know, the Rising Stars workshop held in Berkeley, if I remember correctly, they also have something like this roundtable stuff. And they kind of group, because that is much a larger event, they group faculty and students according to their areas, and you got a chance to talk to multiple faculty in your area and multiple students. In this sense, it is a much more relaxed format. And I know that different students have different personality, and even faculty have different personalities. Some are more talkative, some are less talkative. So in such a hybrid format, it is much better. Also, when I co-organized the YArt and when we did this roundtable mentoring event, it is a very nice event for faculty to meet each other too, because I think it also increased some motivation of the faculty to attend this event. You also have a good chance to meet your good friends in this community, especially in large conferences during COVID. If it's a very large gather town, it's a little bit difficult to find the person you want to talk to, even though you have everyone available to you, but it's a little bit difficult to find your friends that sometimes you want to just catch up with them during conferences. And when we did this roundtable event early this year, we invited a subset of mentors who are also in the PC, the program committee of YArt. So it's only around 15 faculty, and turns out that we have more mentors than mentees in the roundtable event, which is kind of a little bit hilarious, but I think the faculty enjoyed catching up with each other. So that's also a benefit. I'm very looking forward to do that in person, and we can have a real roundtable in that sense.
That's great. So also to the audience, if you have any question, not only to the panelists, also to CALM and our community, please also raise it up. We have around 10 minutes left for this entire kickoff event. So in the meantime, I'd like to follow up a question. Oh, actually, I see one question showing up here. So what do you think are the differences between a long-term mentor and an advisor? How should I make most of the two relationships? I think that's a really great question.
Yeah. Should I take it first, or I don't?
Sure thing.
Okay. Yeah. So I think okay, so this depends, I think, a lot on I mean, I guess advisor, I would say, is a mentor of some kind, but they're very like I'm going to show my programming languages side, like a very domain specific advisor or mentor, like they're, you know, grad school, helping you, you know, with your research, you know, and getting you whatever job it is that you want after. And this is obviously really helpful. It's so helpful that, you know, yeah, it's like an irreplaceable role. I think a long-term mentor, so usually, I think it's just that one person, like an advisor, cannot play every role in your life, and cannot fill every need that you have. So, I mean, a simple example that comes up for me is like, my advisor was a man, and that's cool. Like, I only say was because, I graduated. But like, he, fantastic advisor, but like sometimes I had questions about, the constraints of like going on the job market with like fertility and so on. And like, these are things that I just couldn't, I could ask him and he would give me like some answers, but I really was craving the perspective of, someone who had personally gone through that in the community. So I ended up forming a sort of informal, external, like long-term mentoring relationship with someone else who really like helped me navigate those challenges as I was on the job market. Yeah, as far as like making the most of the two relationships, the standard advice that we give to mentees is like, if you have a good relationship with your advisor, then before you start the mentoring relationship, it's good to talk to the advisor and say, explicitly, like, I would like to, start this mentoring relationship through this program, just because you might sometimes get, conflicting advice. And when this happened to me, I would bring it up to my advisor and I'd be like, this person told me this, and we'd resolve it because we had a really good relationship. I think though there is like a really strong need sometimes for a mentor when you don't have a good relationship with your advisor. Like a really unfortunate example that comes up is like there are abusive advisors out there. And that's, I think, one of the situations where an external mentor can help you recognize something really unhealthy is going on. And in those situations, I don't think, you should have to tell your advisor that you've sought out this mentoring relationship. So it can get really tricky, but yeah, it's, if you're in good terms, I think it's good to be explicit.
Thanks for sharing. So Adrian, do you have any thoughts on this?
Sure. I was just gonna add that, like, even within the domain of like when you have a good relationship with your advisor, I guess just to sort of state the obvious, it's like different people are different, and this includes advisors. Like people have different opinions and different, like, have even thought about stuff, and even if you're not going to have like a direct disagreement that is like conflicting advice from someone else, just like a different person is going to focus on different kinds of things. And so like having a little bit more like entropy in the mix, like even if you have a really good relationship with your advisor, it is like sometimes not a good idea to get all your advice from exactly one person. Like it seems like maybe that's just like, maybe you'll get the right advice 95% of the time, but like, like they're going to be wrong some of the time, or like they won't have noticed something or something, so just having like a little bit more diversity of thought mixed in there is useful to have.
Yeah, definitely. Totally agree. And Guru and Mondia, do you have any comments on this question as well?
I think Anjun and Talia have already mentioned a lot. I totally agree that it's really that people are different. And I think it's not easy to answer questions mainly because even your advisor, I mean, research advisor can be very different styles of advisor. So it's very difficult to really figure out how to have these complementary benefits from both the mentor and advisor. For me, I would say it really depends on how you feel it is comfortable for you. And maybe one way to use the long-term mentor is that if you feel like sometimes your advisors, the feedback or suggestion doesn't really match your career goal or doesn't match what you really want to do, then you can seek some other advice from your long-term mentor. For example, I do have a mentee who got some advice from his or her advisor, and then she feel like whether it's right or not, he is still being a little bit struggling with that. Then he or she talked to me. I feel like the advice is actually very correct. So I kind of further confirmed the advice she or he got from his advisor. So which turns out to be more assurance then I give him or her a conflicting advice. So many things can happen. So how about, because you still like interact more with your advisor, research advisor when you are working on research. So I personally feel like the long-term mentor, because you didn't meet that frequently, it's more like a monthly basis. So it's more like you can seek some advice from another person when you feel you are uncomfortable or you are unsure about some advice you got from an advisor. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, that's a great point. And Guraj, do you want to also follow up on this question?
Yep. I think everyone had excellent points. I just want to add that when you're picking as a mentee, you're picking a mentor either through one of these programs or independently, developing these relationships. What's worked for me is actually actively diversifying the sort of people I make these connections with, because like my advisor is one type of person, right? He does research in one area, he is at one point in his career, and he has one set of life experiences. It's proven very beneficial to me when I actually find a mentor who is probably in another area, who is at another point in their career and totally different, right? So it actually opens up a lot of new knowledge, a lot of new connections, a lot of additional, the incremental benefit is the maximum when you get something that you're not getting already. So I would advise strongly to do that.
Thanks for your comments. I guess we don't have further questions at this moment, and we are about to end this session. So I think we can pick one more question if you have any short questions.
I have a question actually for the sick plan M folks. I'm actually wondering so I guess sick plan M is at a really good position right now, right? Where you get significant number of new mentees and mentors, and I think it's healthy. So what were some of the scaling like challenges you faced while scaling it up in the first initial phase, where I think CALM probably is at that stage right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let's see. So some of the challenges, one big challenge was, I think we did not do well early on at screening mentors and mentees and gathering enough information to make good matches at the very beginning. So in the first round of matches, we had a number of people who maybe like mentees who showed up to one meeting and then dropped off the face of the earth. And at first I thought this was strange. And then after kind of following up in more detail with mentors, with mentees about what was going on, a lot of people had seen this program, like programming languages, long-term mentoring program kind of thing, and they thought that it was a programming mentoring, and they wanted to learn how to program. And these expectations were just not at all, what the program was actually doing. So, we added more questions to figure out, to really get a good sense of why people are interested, what they want, what their background is. And if I see someone now who applies and they list, absolutely nothing about programming languages, maybe they list a whole bunch of different areas, or it seems like they want to, learn how to program, I'll reach out to them personally and I'll explain in a little more detail what's going on. And I'll ask is this something you're interested in still? And occasionally the answer is yes. Most of the time the answer is no. So I think that, that just helped. Yeah, another thing that was really hard was I think the first time doing anything is hard. So the first, matching process was really hard. The first renewal wave after a year was really hard. And then once you get into the flow of things, it becomes a lot easier. Yeah.
Oh, we have the last question coming from the chat. What do mentors expect from mentees and tips making the relationship going well? I guess anybody want to take the question?
I can give one answer, which is that I really appreciate it when mentees are proactive about taking the lead on scheduling things. rather than my needing to help find a time. It's super, super helpful if someone is like, persistent about helping to find a time. That's all.
That's very great advice. We should consider having a list of properties that mentees should follow as a guiding our website. This is a great suggestion. So does anybody else have any comments on these questions?
I would actually add that not just on scheduling, if the mentees are able to pull rather than, so if mentees are able to be proactive in all of the things they do, right? Like ask questions, get feedback, whatever, right? It really becomes easier for the mentor to understand what are the needs and accordingly try to satisfy those needs. It becomes hard if it's push rather than pull from the mentee side. So.
Yes.
Yeah, I think just I'm reluctant to place like too much pressure on mentees. Just because I don't know. I feel like I prefer when some of the onus comes on the mentor side, just at, like structurally and like as a form of like the, the justice consequences of that. But I think in practice, it is true that like the more senior people are probably going to miss more emails, and like it does help when mentees, remind them of things. I think like, for me, I just set up regular meetings with mentees, which helps a lot because they're always on my calendar. And I like when people send me the invite. I think like, yeah, I mean, I don't think any mentee should have to like, thank their mentor and so on, but it always makes me really happy when I hear that I've had some positive impact on someone's life. Like it's just natural, I think. Yeah, I guess that's just the big things.
Monja, do you have any follow-up points?
Yeah, maybe I have just one minor expectation from my mentee is that I do hope that the mentee feels comfortable talking to me, because I will try my best to make him or her feel comfortable talking to me, ask me any questions. And if they do not feel comfortable, maybe it's not a good match, because according to my own experience as a mentee and a mentor, I do know that people are different because of the culture difference or the style of working or whatever, all these kind of differences. It's nothing wrong or correct that you do not feel comfortable talking to someone. So you should really pick the one you feel comfortable, you feel attached. And there's nothing wrong if you do not feel comfortable talking to a specific person, because people are different. And as long as the mentee does feel comfortable talking to me, I'm happy to talk to them. And so far, I'm fine in managing my emails and schedules. So I generally do not miss emails, but if I miss the email, I do hope that the mentee can just send me a mild reminder. I generally feel really ashamed if I miss some emails. So most time, if you send me a reminder, I will generally catch that. Yeah, that's my only expectation.
Thanks so much. I think that's pretty much everything for this panel session. So if you, to the audience, if you have any follow-up questions or any suggestions for our program, feel free to drop us email and we'll try to answer them as soon as we can. And so much again for attending this panel session, especially the panelists. And hopefully our attendees and the panelists will be, in the future, will be mentors and mentees. And okay, I think that's it for today.
Thanks for organizing. Thanks for organizing.
See you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much. Good luck with everything, and reach out if you have questions too.
Bye now.